All right, here we are. The countdown clock was a little premature, but we're all here today. So thanks for joining today's LinkedIn Live. I am so happy to have this group here today. I don't often have two at once, but this is such a big announcement. It's worth having two people on for. So today we want to learn about this consortium that I think SAP is joining Cisco to address AI's impact on the tech workforce. This is a private sector collaborative. Member companies include Cisco, Accenture, Google, IBM, Intel, Microsoft, Indeed, and Eightfold, and now SAP. And so joining us today to talk about this consortium, I have Nikki Helmer, who's the VP of Learning and Development at SAP, and Guy Diedrich, who's the SVP and Global Innovation Officer for Cisco. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Karen.
Terrific. So maybe we could just start with an overview of the consortium and why all these companies are coming together.
Sure, I'll start, and then Nikki will sort of play off each other. The consortium came together to address a fundamental question of what is the impact that AI is going to have on tech jobs moving forward. So the consortium wanted to look at the top, most popular, most in-demand tech jobs in our industry and evaluate what the skills roadmap would look like for achieving a good deal of proficiency in those areas and actually getting certified to perform the function. But then we wanted to look at the impact of AI. And this impacts every single company. So how are those roles going to change with AI introduced to them? We know from, for instance, the World Economic Forum that 83 million jobs are going to be impacted by digitization and AI between now and the end of 2025. So it's all happening all around us. But 69 million net new jobs are going to be created. And they're going to be AI jobs. So how is AI going to impact those roles moving forward? And this group of companies coming together is trying to serve the rest of the industry by exploring that.
Terrific. Nikki, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think that one of the most interesting aspects is the concept of AI jobs. And I like to think of it like digital and the digital revolution where everything was going to be web-based or everything was going to be digital. And now every job is a digital job. Every job is using a computer. Every job has some interaction with a website or an app or something of that nature. And I think that that's exactly the type of thing that we're going to see with the AI revolution. So it will be that new specific jobs are AI jobs created, but it is also going to be that AI infuses and changes small parts, big parts of every job that exists. And so doing that type of analysis together with this consortium, both public and private, is going to give us a head start to understand where those changes are going to happen and where they'll be felt most acutely so that we prepare our workforce and the broader labor force for those shifts. And so I'm pretty excited to see the final report.
Yeah, it's a very exciting endeavor. I mean, I just think about, because of the work I do, I think about the change curve all the time and how we just have to get over into exploration, right? And work our way out of denial, but get into exploration about what this is going to mean, because we all know it's going to be big, but there's a lot of ambiguity about it. And so I think these efforts like yours will be so important in helping people to do that. Nikki is the global head of sort of functional learning at SAP. What major shifts should companies expect in their workforce with the rise of AI? And sort of the opportunities for the workforce as a result? Do you have any ideas about that?
Yeah, like I was pointing out, I think that the changes that will come with AI as a technology are obviously going to breed entirely new professions that we can't even quite predict yet. We'll have to see how they evolve. There are going to be some immediate and obvious impacts on professions like data engineering or on cybersecurity, right? There's it's clear that there is massive disruption there that needs careful attention, both in positive and negative ways. The part that I am most interested in, the part that I think is hardest for us to unpack, is that AI is going to create the ability to automate or to streamline tasks that every single worker is already doing. And that theoretically frees up their capacity to do more things, and or from a company perspective reduces the number of people doing that thing that you might need. And I think that it's that cycle which needs a lot of careful attention, because when we speak with other leaders, and especially if you look at the global climate that we're in, there's a high focus on efficiency, right? So
Yes.
how are we going to automate things? What can we save by introducing AI to now do this task, or now to do this task? So as HR professionals, we have a responsibility to help reskill people into broader responsibilities or into other tasks. But the part that I really worry that companies, ours on this line, and in general, that we miss out on, is the creative different things which
Yeah.
are now possible. So there's an efficiency of what's already there. Yes, there's redeploying resources and reshuffling responsibilities in an organization's operating model that are valuable, but the thinking creatively about what wasn't possible 5 years ago is now where we could put our heads together and really set people up
Yeah.
for what's coming in the future.
Yeah. Because I think that's like the most asked question, right? Is what do I need to do today? People always ask the what's in it for me question, right? So, but what do I need to do today to prepare myself to be useful and part of this revolution tomorrow? That's great. Guy, your part of your title has to do with the country digital acceleration program, and you're active in 50 countries around the world, working with academia and government and industry to close the digital divide. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what are you hearing from world leaders about AI in the workforce?
Well, we're hearing a lot. I mean, just for a bit of background, the CDA program, Country Digital Acceleration Program, has been around since 2015. So we
Mhm.
have been actively investing in countries, helping them accelerate their national digital agendas. We invest in projects and proofs of concept, things that really are a little experimental, that really move the needle for those countries. And to date, we have, say, 50 countries that participate in the program, and we've done over 1,600 individual digitization projects across almost every vertical.
Wow.
So security and smart connected cities, healthcare, education, utilities. I mean, the list just goes on. And they're all aligned, though, to what the priorities are of those countries. And when we first engage, the first engagement is always with the president and prime minister.
Mhm.
The reason we do that is because we have to know that that country is prepared to invest in themselves, to invest in their populations, to accelerate that national digital agenda. And then we come in and we co-invest or we fund these pilots. So we have a very privileged seat at the table in terms of what their priorities are, what the concerns are, what their challenges are. And what we're hearing time and again is that skills is at the top of their priority list. It's just critical because what's happening right now, Karen, and we all sense it, is that technology is churning faster than ever. It is just now a constant. But before you could plan ages, right? The digital age, the information age, you could call them a decade or 2 decades. That's no longer relevant. It's almost Moore's law. You remember Moore's law,
Mhm.
doubling a processor speed every 18 months and halving of cost. It's Moore's law applied to our entire industry. Everything is churning every 18 to 24 months. We're less than 2 years into AI becoming ubiquitous. And look, we're already looking at quantum and what's going to happen there, which will supplant so many of the things that we're focusing on now. So what they're seeing is this churn. and they want to keep up. And they realize the only way they're going to keep up is through skills, because things are going to innovate. They're going to innovate all around them. And you have to have the skilled population. You have to have the intellectual capital to be able to take full advantage of that. Because if you're just investing in tech, if you're just investing in the technology and not in the skills, you're throwing money down a technology black hole as a country or as a company, quite honestly. And so to me, what we're finding, and these leaders all recognize this, is that right along their technology investments, there have to be skills investments, because you have to have the skilled workforce to be able to innovate using your technologies, install them, maintain them, and get the full value out of them.
Yeah. Wow. Nikki, I see a lot of head nodding over there.
This is a topic. So I sponsor SAP runs a major program called Our Skills Transformation. And this is precisely the insight that germinated that initiative, which is that if you want to avoid massive disruption, and we have some statistics from Deloitte saying that 77% of businesses and HR executives believe that flexibly moving skills is the key to navigating future disruptions, but only 5% think that they are investing enough in these initiatives. And so I see that on a daily basis, and I hear that in what you're describing as well, Guy. But in the Moore's Law definition, I think that there's something really powerful to say. The skills themselves have a shorter and shorter half-life. And so even thinking about how we reskill employees or the labor force has to fundamentally be considered on a shorter time horizon, right? We need to somehow plan for the 3 to 5 year future, right? And we should probably ignore the 10-year future at this point. But in that planning, we need to plan for change. We need to plan for enough flexibility and fluidity that if quantum suddenly becomes, commercially viable, that we're able to react to the massive shift that would bring to the technology market, the security markets, global economy and stability. But literally, even with AI, where we're saying, hey, this is changing so much on such a quick time horizon, with the capability of even the models from when they were first introduced, that you can no longer plan this journey that is a year or two long, even if that is 1/10 of what the journey used to be described. And we think of skills as the way to do that in a more modular, more personalized, more incremental, and therefore more agile way to manage both an individual's development and your company's design and workforce development. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think about software, right? And we used to have releases of software, big releases, and now it's like continuous deployment, and that's really what needs to happen with skills. It's not enough just to take a course once a year for 2 weeks or something, right? You have to continue. We will need to continuously be upgrading our skills just to keep pace. I was part of a National Association of Corporate Directors meeting a few weeks ago, and a woman in the room said, this was on governance for innovation, i.e. AI, without saying AI. And a woman in the room said, however scary it is to think about what might be coming, it will never be easier to get in than it is now. It'll never be less complex than it is right now. And so now is the time we have to start thinking about and preparing for because it's not going to be easier in 6 months or a year. We will know more, but we won't know more, as it were. So, Guy, I want to come back to you because this makes me think about innovation, of course, and your role is innovation officer, but you're also responsible for learning at Cisco. Why do you believe innovation officers play a key role in identifying and cultivating the future skills for your own workforce? I think it's just so interesting to have innovation and learning. It's appropriate, but interesting because most people do it, to have innovation and learning combined in one role.
Yeah, because the two from this point forward are forever linked.
Mm.
There is no separation of the two. You pointed out, Karen, earlier that learning is no longer an event. It is now a process, a continuous process. And so you're going to constantly be learning as you are innovating. And as you are innovating, you're going to have to be learning. The two just now reside together forever. And we've recognized not only that we, as we innovate, we need to be training, but we can also use a lot of those innovations in that training. Nikki referenced how it's going to have to be a continuous process and how it's going to have to keep up in terms of the agility and flexibility of the programs that we develop. And I don't think that we can ever rest. When you look at the impact innovation can have on learning, I think that it'll really contribute in meaningful ways. I'll give you an example. At Cisco, we have a very famous program around the world called the Networking Academy, or NetAcad. NetAcad is in 190 countries. There's only 192 flagged countries in the world. So it's a global program. And we've trained up almost 23 million students on things like networking. It's how you get your Cisco certifications in networking, your CCNA, your CCNP, your CCIE. But it also trains people up in security and in programming and a number of other skills. Well, the newest programs that we're releasing are around AI. And we're actually taking a very innovative approach. We're using AI to train people on AI. So built into the AI training is an AI tutor that is a subject matter expert on all of the content that is being delivered in this program. So as a student, if I'm going through individually and I get a little confused, I can conversationally ask that AI tutor how I resolve this conflict or how I get more clarity on this issue. And it's just the coolest thing. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We're also building in a lot of gamification, which again is another innovation. There are links between innovation and training and education that will be there forever. And we just acknowledged that early and combined the two and said that is going to be our path forward.
Yeah. Oh, that is very cool. And I'm just thinking if I were to get something wrong after all that, I could blame it on a hallucination. So
Agreed.
I'd be
If
all
I
in
can
for
just
that. Yes.
jump in again, and I hate to but I when Guy and I first met, we had the same conversation about how fascinating it is that Cisco has put innovation and learning together, but fascinating in how logical it is, not
Right.
fascinating in how unexpected it is. But the thing that I thought was interesting and just worth more exploration, SAP's former chief innovation officer turned into SAP's chief learning officer. So whether or not you do it in this direction or that direction, we saw the same. And I myself came from our innovation unit. I was doing emerging technology research strategy and saw that emerging technologies represent such a risk to, yes, to our socioeconomic stability as the global organization, but specifically to our company. And what is the biggest risk of those technologies is not understanding how to use them, when to use them, when not to use them, how not to use them. And it's kind of a really natural connection to learning as a solution to the disruption problem, or two sides to the same coin, and knowing at which point is a technology past that tipping point where you need a lot of people to learn it. Which people do you need to learn it? What do they need to know about it in order to stave off what could be potentially an existential threat to your company? And so I thought it was so interesting that both Cisco and SAP saw that connection, and I'm deeply curious how many other companies are already connecting these two dots.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, Karen, just as a final thought on this is, we have another group inside Cisco that I'm responsible for called Learning and Certification, and they work closely with partners. They train up the world of our partner network, which is 35,000 strong around the world. They train all of them on our technologies and our equipment. And they also train everybody internally. So the point is that as we innovate as a company with our equipment, with our technology, with our services, we have to have that training available instantly, not just internally, but also throughout the entire partner network.
Right.
So that's another justification for combining the two and recognizing that they are inseparable.
Yeah, that's great. Nikki, I had a question for you, which you, I think, have at least partially addressed, but I want to make sure I give you some airtime here around this. So are there specific strategies that you use and employ to anticipate and address the future skill requirements within SAP today?
Yeah, I would love to go into a little bit more detail because I think that this is a model that can be used by any company or any government to varying degrees. So as I mentioned, we are embarking on something that we call our skills transformation. We have been working on this for several years, but the intent is that we want to break down work into the skills required to do that work. We want to break down people effectively into the skills that they bring so that we can better mix and match them. So like we're talking about with AI for any given job will bring new tasks, new responsibilities, new tools you need to know, new processes, but it will also automate some of those pieces of work. And it can be flexibly composed in different ways as we move forward. But if you want to flexibly compose anything, you need to break it down into what we like to call a more atomic structure, right? The bigger your pixels are, the more pixelated
Mhm.
your painting, the smaller your pixels, the more fine-tuned and more seamless it looks. So we're looking at skills both from the what is the work and what is the person so that we can make that combination. We've first defined a single taxonomy for what we consider to be skills, competencies across the company. That sounds small, but it's actually a strangely difficult thing to do. That a Mercer study the other day, I think it said only 45% of companies even have this informally done, let alone formally done. But with this list, then you can start having a really meaningful discussion of which things are more or less important in the context of how a job is being reshaped in AI, which skills are adjacent to other skills, which roles are adjacent. Roles can be thought of as just clusters of skills. So we're able to literally re-examine our entire operating model for the company by considering roles in a different way at a more granular level than we ever have before. And so we are, as we speak, going through our entire job catalog in order to say, okay, what are the most important skills here? How does AI affect these jobs? What might be the new AI skills? There's clearly sort of a data literacy component now required everywhere, but what else? And then how can we, once we have that established, which is the expectations from the individual level, how do you kind of map yourself against these skills? And then where can we target learning in a way that is really personalized? And it's funny, to your point, Guy, using AI in the training, there's a lot of AI, there's a lot of ML that is baked into that process to better recommend, to better tailor, to adjust learning that would then suit your context. But even at that skills analysis side, to say this role is really very similar to this role, there maybe they seem different because they're in different parts of the org, but you from a career perspective could move in a different direction if only, and you kind of open people's mind to new paths, which is, I think, another one of the most beautiful opportunities that come when there are big technological changes, that people can start to see themselves a little bit differently as they take stock of their skills and what is going to be the future of this role or that role.
Oh, that's so great. And as you say, it could be used by anyone, right? And it solves the it solves today's problem of don't put me in a box, right? I know how to do these things, but I'll never have a chance to do them in marketing because I don't have a background in marketing, but I have the competency set.
Yes.
And then it gets you ready for what's coming tomorrow in terms of your career. I love that. So I have so many other questions I want to ask, but I think we have to close. And so I wanted to just bring this back to the consortium level. And one of the questions, this is a big stakeholder group that you have going on, right? You've got big stakeholder group. How will you coordinate such a large group? Because there's a lot that could be done. Certainly we could just take some of the threads that were talked about here today and generate a lot of worthwhile outcomes from them. But how do you coordinate such a big group?
Well, I'll take a first stab. It is a bit like herding cats, but at the same time, it is a group that was brought together for all the right reasons, and it is such a talented group, and it is such a representative group for our industry. The analogy that I use, if you or your audience are familiar with Semitech in the semiconductor industry, right? There were certain things that everybody in that industry needed to have, certain things that were just foundational and baseline that they all shared. It was a thread of continuity through every single company. So they decided to all come together and say, listen, we're going to invest in Semitech, which is going to cover all of these pre-competitive things that are important to all of us. Take that same model and apply it to the consortium. And it starts to make sense as to why we are all coming together, because we all have the same challenges. And there's no point in each of us individually taking our own paths and trying to figure it out alone. Why don't we come together as a group, as a consortium, and address those big challenges, those big foundational things? And then we'll go off and compete against each other as we always do. But let's take that pre-competitive element and do it together and do it right, and all set ourselves off on the right path moving forward. And really, that's the practical value of this consortium. So the point is, everyone's focused, everyone has the same desire for the same outcome, and a desire to contribute not just to their individual companies, but to the entire industry. It is truly a rising tide lifts all boats scenario.
Yeah. And everyone has a sense of urgency, which is the other thing that can get in the way of these large groups. That's great. Nicole, I'll let you close if there's anything you'd like to add. This certainly sounds like work that is right up SAP's alley, if you will.
It absolutely is. So I can first start by thanking Cisco for inviting us to join this initiative. I think it's been a powerful convening force to bring together so many major companies and governments to tackle this. What I think is really substantial here is that the best way to solve a problem is to really clearly define the problem, right? With that type of clarity, you can come up with any collection of different potential solutions that would all be tested and tried against the problem at hand. I think we all recognize that there's a lot of change coming from AI, and that it affects the labor force in a way that none of us individually, not even the governments, can truly influence alone. So if we come together and say, hey, look, we agree that this is what we are trying to tackle, this is the ideal end state, then even if a lot of the different parties go off and tackle that with a course on our open platform, or a course that leads to a certification or something through the university system, eventually at least we're all driving in the same direction that we have agreed. And I think it's really, there's no other way to do it and have the impact on global scale than what Cisco has set up with this consortium.
Terrific. Well, thank you both. It's been a very stimulating, inspiring conversation, and let me know if there's anything else I can do to support you. Appreciate your time today and wish you and your teams all the best in this endeavor. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you for having us, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.